Good evening, Cheeseheads. Welcome to the show. My name is John. I'm your host for this evening. And joining me this evening on this chilly night on the South Coast, first of all, is my number one son, who's just a few days away from celebrating his 20th birthday. He's staying at my parents' just a mile away or so away. So his internet's terrible, unfortunately. So he may drop out. Is James, how are you, mate?
I'm brilliant, as you know. Got to spend a hours with you today. Very exciting.
Well,
birthday present from you, you know. Yes.
Yeah, I bought James a bottle of whiskey because he hasn't drunk enough.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Okay.
And well, what was quite funny was you asking, is there a good price on various whiskies? And if you don't know, my dad, the past 20 years, in bust. So I would hope he knows how much whiskey would cost. But I'm lovely. Thank you.
You might have to switch to your phone, James, possibly because it's still breaking up a little bit. But we'll see how we go. Now, a man that's had a great week and has been enjoying the love for Gil Messi. He's the king of New York. It's Flat Cap Jack.
It's been a great week for anybody that was on the Hill Messi train from an early stage. We have a lot of Gelievers as well. We even have, I think, Dave, we're going to get into it quite later. We don't want to spoil it all. Don't want to spoil all the plaudits and all the appreciation. And yeah, it's just been a good week for the Gelievers. I even actually one time, even on Papa Matasar, I believe we had a discussion once very, very briefly on him, as it should have been, because, you know, he hadn't really featured very much before that point. But I kind of had no issue with him kind of sticking around this season because we haven't even seen him in a Spurs shirt, basically, you know, for the most part. So it's nice that he gets to sort of have his moment in front of the Spurs faithful. Maybe he now has a bit more allegiance and maybe a bit more of a passion for the club now. You never know.
Yeah, indeed.
Sorry to get into it already.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's right. Just sent James the link, so hopefully he can get on his phone. Or
Jack, that's just the intro bit, yeah.
Oh, I know. I'll cool it after that.
And joining us next, a man at the age of 15 was called a languid cynic. Well, I can tell you, he's a full-on cynic now that he's 51. How are you, Dave?
Yeah, no, I'm really good, really good. We've got some Melbourne weather here in the last couple of days. Thanks, Cameron. And but you know, unlike Melbourne, there's plenty of things to do even when it is raining. So looking forward to a good weekend in Australia's number one city.
Yeah, James, welcome back. Have you switched devices?
I've just tried closing everything else on my laptop. Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we'll see how it goes. And he's gone. So I think before we move on and talk about the Crystal Palace game and then the Portsmouth game, we were hoping to have a Pompey fan on this evening. I actually had one lined up, but unfortunately he had to do a bit of an Elton Wellesby and bail on us due to a domestic accident his wife had. So we wish Kev's wife well and hope she's okay. But first of all, I'd like to and he wasn't a Spurs player, I'd like us just to mention the passing of Gianluca Vialli today. Although he played for one of our rivals and managed Chelsea as well, it's impossible not to talk about what a great player he was. Vialli and Roberto Mancini formed a formidable partnership for Sampdoria in the early 1990s. Vialli then moved to Juve for a world record fee at the time, I think of 12.5 million. And Vialli went on to be the captain of Juve when they won the Champions League in 1996, a team that contained Didier Deschamps, Del Piero, and of course our very own Antonio Conte. He then went on to join Chelsea on a free transfer the same year that we signed Stefan Everson for 2.6 million. Something's gone a bit wrong there, hasn't it, Davo? And yeah, and went on to win the FA Cup and the Cup Winners' Cup as a player manager. He was becoming the youngest manager to win a European trophy at the time. Very sad, 58 years old. Yet another, it seems each week we're mentioning the passing of a footballer, but 58 is just too young, Davo, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And you're absolutely right, John.
Oh, you've muted yourself. Oh.
There we go.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Although I'm sure lots of people would like me to be permanently muted. I think that, you know, it's very sad news. 58 is no age, and Vialli, you know, as you can tell by some of the comments here and in the last 24 hours, even though he played for one of our most hated rivals, he managed one of our most hated rivals, but I think there's always been an affection for him, and I think that is and that's something that transcends it. It's like Ian Wright, for example. He obviously played for the Gooners. We all shouted various songs at him when he was playing for the Gooners, but his post-Gooner career, there's a lot of affection for him in terms of who he is, and what he represents, and the same goes for Vialli. So it is a huge shame, and obviously and has an impact on our coach at a human level again. And what has been a challenging season for him on a human level already. So thoughts go out to everyone.
I mean, obviously, he was very, very close, and Conte put this picture up on his Instagram earlier and said how close he was to Vialli. And also he lost Mihajlovic recently, who again he was very close with, and this on top of Ventroni earlier in the season. So our very emotional manager that we see quite often, he obviously takes things more to heart than most in many ways. This is going to be very hard for him, I think. Jack, do you remember Vialli, or are you a bit young for that?
A bit before my time, I think. That one thing I would maybe add is that I think he's already lost Ventrone during the month of October, which was a really kind of difficult fixture period. Now, as well, this is January, very difficult fixture period. Just sort of kind of have to, on a human level, just really feel for Conte, because it's kind of hard to be going through basically the toughest periods of the entire football season with all this other stuff outside of football that he also has to be thinking about at the same time, and also probably kind of creeps into, kind of his mood or his emotions, like it would kind of all of us. So you kind of just have to feel for him on the human level, of course.
Yeah, you make a good point. I think sometimes we do forget.
Just the worst possible times, maybe that could happen to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes we do forget that, with all this going on, that, there are human beings and emotions and things like that. And I think we forget that, particularly, at these times like this. And I think it's important to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phil says, always like Vialli, even though he was Chelsea. My mum met him when he first joined Chelsea while she worked in the Holiday Inn. She had no clue who he was until we managed to work it out. Said he was lovely. Wow. And that's one of the things, I know people say these things when people pass away, but genuinely, I've never heard a bad word about Vialli. Seemed like a really, really top bloke. And it's so, so sad. Right. We shall move on. So we did do a instant reaction show on Wednesday to the rather resounding and surprising 4-0 win against Crystal Palace. James, we're going to test your audio now. What did you think of the starting lineup when it was released? Oh, James? Okay, Jack, we'll come to you, mate.
Certain Eric Dyer returned into the lineup. I feel like, if you ask me, I think asked me on the day of, I believe I commented that I would have rather probably seen some consistency. I know we did lose to Villa, but I probably would have preferred to have seen just what we had gone with before, Davies, Romero, and Longley, stick with kind of that sort of center back, I think, trio that seems to work, or at least makes fewer, ridiculous mistakes, in my opinion. But honestly, they did fantastic and really proved me wrong on the day. At least they got a long awaited clean sheet, finally a clean sheet. And I don't think Dyer really made any dramatic mistakes I can think of. Not really even the case with Longley or Romero. I thought Romero has been absolutely superb. Skip and Højbjerg, not really a big surprise. Some people maybe were thinking Papa Matasar would have started ahead of Skip, but I don't really know if that was really, I think that was more of a hope than an actual belief. And then Hill Messi, let's be honest, I actually did not think he would start today because he didn't impress all that much at home against Villa. Conte kind of gave him the second chance, which he's not maybe always known for as well with the young players, and he did it. He gave Hill Messi a chance. Who would have thought?
I'm just going to bring you an update from the FA Cup game. United have gone 2-1 up. Connor Cody, who had equalised for Everton, has now scored an own goal. So it's 2-1 to United after 55 minutes.
Well, that'll give Everton plenty to focus on, staving off relegation this year with Frank Lampard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Davo, starting lineups?
Yeah, look, I think that, Bryan is obviously a big fan of the Spanish royal family because he likes a good performance at the Palace. So I thought that I was actually pleased that Dyer got dropped in the last game because he made such a massive error, kind of the corner that he conceded on the Brentford second goal. I think it's good that, if you don't perform, which he didn't, then there's consequences. So I was quite happy with that. I was surprised to see Longley playing because I thought that Davis would play as a more physical game at the Palace, but that wasn't the case. And I would have preferred we played in three in midfield, but he had to have a midfield option off the bench because in the end I think there was a combined 6 wing backs, centre backs on the bench against Palace. This doesn't give you a lot of options, does it now?
I remember the Nottingham Forest game where we got to see all of our failed right back signings on the same pitch at the same time with Serge Aurier and Emerson Royale, etc. It was a pretty fun day, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read this out because we haven't had any swearing yet, I don't think, which is quite a record. 11 minutes for us. Frank Lampard will get sacked. I mean, Everton, people aren't happy with our board and the way our club's been run, but Everton really are an advert for how not to run a club, aren't they, Jack?
I mean, they've spent money. That's the amazing thing about them is that you can't fault them for, especially a few years ago, like really spending money on some, what people might have thought were going to be successful signings, but like the money they spent was quite tremendous for, not really achieving much of recent and also kind of being sort of hovering in that, as we call the Everton Cup position, which is the 7th, 8th, 9th sort of area. And I don't know, really, it's a difficult one to assess because of course you always want to have a lot of money to invest and you always want there to be a big piggy bank because that allows you to make more mistakes and that allows you to be able to write off more mistakes. At the same time, though, they've done it so much and made so many mistakes that they've actually somehow tremendously, put them in a financial hole through just so many bad investments in a row after a row. It's pretty quite impressive if you ask me when it comes to Everton. I don't know if I have much sympathy, though, in their case, because when you do kind of put yourself in that position, and I do mean put yourself in that position, it's kind of hard to sympathize.
Just on this, Adrian, their next game apparently is Southampton. So that's a real Southampton are in free fall at the moment. That's going to be a real relegation game, isn't it? Well, they're not in free fall because they're rock bottom, but yeah, 2 teams really struggling. Anyway, let's get back to Spurs. So we've covered the starting lineups. Obviously, you were delighted, weren't you, that he was back?
I think maybe Antonio Conte, he looked a little tense against Aston Villa. Perhaps in this match, Antonio Conte just told him to let his hair down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was hoping Sarr would start. I was a bit worried we haven't seen much of Skip, and he hasn't really looked great when we have. And I thought Sarr's looked bright in the pre-season, not, in these friendlies we've had. Oh, apparently Iwobi has been stretched off to look bad, and he's been their best player pretty much all season. But first half, we started brightly, Dave. I thought first 20, 25 minutes, we were definitely the better team.
Yeah, first 15. Yeah, I agree. With first 15 minutes was sprightly. It looked like there was a bit of energy around them. It didn't look like the demoralised mob that finished off the game against Villa. And I thought that and Hill Messi was getting amongst it, looking at some opportunities and things like that. So they looked bright, and it looked good for the first 15. And then after that,
what happened, Jack? What went wrong? Sorry, is the old alarm going off in the background?
Yeah. I was trying to be polite. Yeah. That was the second siren. So don't worry. No more after that. I was trying to be polite.
Do you want to explain? Do you want to explain what you?
I live in Crown Heights, which is one of the 3 very Jewish neighborhoods in Brooklyn, and this one happens to have plenty of Shabbat sirens Friday. So this is since it is the darker time of year where the sun is going down at around 4:20 p.m. I guess they're ringing it a little sooner each day instead of the 7 and 6 7 and 8 p.m. time, you could say. So in the summer, I wait the summer when we're doing these because then we won't have to worry about it whatsoever.
Okay. I can't even remember what I asked you now. What were we talking? Oh, why did Palace suddenly take over in the first half?
Why did we suddenly? I don't know. Højbjerg mistake, perhaps. Like we kind of discussed that, right? Didn't he have a pretty bad giveaway at a certain stage of that game when we had all that momentum in the first half? I feel like we played well for the first 20 minutes. Genuinely, I thought Sonny actually played really well for the first 20 minutes. He kind of wasn't really holding the ball kind of as long or, kind of stalling the play. I think like he's done in other games, he was being kind of able to just get rid of it quite quickly, make runs in behind, stretch the Palace defense. I really liked how we played in the first 20 minutes. And then a lot of people pointed out in kind of the, while we were watching the game, that it was kind of a Højbjerg mistake or a Højbjerg kind of giveaway that sort of maybe lost the momentum and maybe sort of I don't know, maybe they just lost a bit of confidence or something like that. And Palace kind of took advantage of it. And we kind of got out of there all in one piece somehow. It did feel like they were probably very capable of scoring and definitely got very close there. But we survived it. And I think there's some, kind of benefit in that, because it felt like every other game we would have conceded. But this Palace team, I guess, didn't really have the shooting boots on today, but we sort of did some good last minute defending. I just think maybe it started from that Højbjerg kind of a giveaway, and he didn't exactly have the best first half. Neither did Skippy, really.
I think probably we were fortunate we were playing Palace, who aren't the most clinical, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gibbo's favourite Dane, Højbjerg, in the 3 games that he's come back, he's not played. I don't think he's played very well, which on the one hand is a bit surprising because he left the World Cup quite early, so he's had the time to recover and then back into training with Conte. But on the other hand, it's quite clear that our best central midfielder is Bentancur, and we're really missing him. As we moved into the World Cup, I mean, there were occasions that we were playing 3 in the midfield, and Basuma was sitting in front of the centre backs, and Højbjerg and Bentancur were playing in more advanced positions. And I thought it looked really good then, actually. But I'm going to contradict myself because I'm not sure that Basuma's the right one to sit in front of the centre backs. I always felt with Brighton, he was more box to box and got more involved in the advanced play. So I've been a bit surprised by the role that he's been given.
When we played them in the Cup last season and we were 2-0 up at the half time, they dominated the first probably 25 minutes of the second half. And it's when Potter changed it. So they played a 4-1-4-1 and made him the one in front of the back 4. And he was dominant. That's when he started dominating the game. So maybe that's why Conte thinks. I think in the right system he can. And he's definitely better in a 3. I'm not sure about him in the 2 at the moment. So, and I think Bentancur has a whole new lease of life, hasn't he? He's become so good, scoring more goals this season than any other season, or the rest of his career, pretty much. By having
same as Højbjerg as well. I mean,
but that's what makes Højbjerg's poor form kind of going into these, last 2 games kind of confusing, is that he's basically having the best season of his life, and like you said, kind of sort of had maybe a poor World Cup, but got to leave the World Cup early, which is always a benefit for us, really. And it is a bit confusing that he started off quite slowly, if you ask me. He's just not really doing as many Højbjerg things, and he's not being that sort of I'm kind of like I'm a big Højbjerg stan. I absolutely love the guy, and I'm just not seeing the same levels that he was producing or performances really that he was before he even went into the World Cup. And let's be honest, I think even Højbjerg fans would admit, like, before he went into the World Cup, he's basically was having the best season of his life so far. And so I don't know. It's a little odd, but we have good competition there, I guess, in the case of Basuma. And I don't know, maybe we'll get onto it later, but Papa Matasar, if we keep him around.
I do wonder if, like, we've seen Perisic come back and has actually probably been one of our best players, and he's been playing continuously. In fact, played the most minutes of any Spurs player in the World Cup. Højbjerg obviously had a bit of a break. I wonder if that break's actually done him some harm, so he hasn't been able to keep the rhythm going. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe it's because he's missing Bentancur.
He could be missing Bentancur. It sometimes is the partner that can make you look worse, and sometimes it is a partnership. Always, absolutely.
Are you talking about in life or on football?
Plenty of things, and I think even Hilmasi knows that. He is a singer. He has a band behind him.
we do. Have you tweeted that clip, Jack, yet?
I did. I tweeted that clip. Yeah. It's one of my better performing ones. I would say Elon Musk would be proud.
Stick it in the comments for people to have a look later, maybe, or maybe at the end of the show we'll do it.
I think you can, but we'll make sure to mute the tabs so you don't get any copyrights, because we don't want Hilmasi to sue us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. So we got to halftime, 0-0. Oh, can we just mention Sonny's cross? I'm going to suggest it was a cross, similar to Kane's penalty in the World Cup.
Yeah.
Can anyone explain that?
How do you want to explain it? Go on, Jack, you do it.
always nice to see a certain player give a souvenir to any, fan. But in that case, it went into, I think, the Selhurst, crowd. So hopefully they were generous enough to throw it to the Spurs away end. Maybe they could have taken a match ball with them. I don't know. Like, we've seen Sonny. What was so funny about that was that we've seen him hit it from that range with his left foot and make it and be able to, challenge keepers. And he scored worldies with his left from that sort of range. So I don't really fault him for going for it, but it just speaks to his confidence, really. And it just speaks to, like, what's going through his head right now. He's just not really, maybe he's overthinking everything. He's just not doing everything with the same sort of, grace that he does. And even he missed a pretty wide open one-on-one chance at one stage that also could have gave him a good opportunity to, get some confidence back. It's just, he used to be such a ruthless finisher, and last season obviously proved it. And I don't know, I can't really explain that shot, but it was nice to see a souvenir always, for the crowd.
But it's a good, it sets us up nicely for a little bit later on in our chat for his moment of redemption. We've got other stuff to talk about before we get to it first. It's building up that suspense.
Exactly.
James, shall we do a sound check? How are you doing?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yay! Yeah.
Yes.
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've pretty much covered it. It was 0-0 at half time. And I think we were the team that were glad it was half time was coming. We definitely needed half time because Palace were growing and building momentum. Hugo did make a good save though, James, which given his massive blunder against Villa was, I think, pretty important.
Is that
James?
the Anderson shot he saved? Am I misremembering?
No.
First half.
No. First half, Anderson had a shot from a distance that went just wide that looked like it was going in. He, I can't remember, was it Eze cut in from the left and had a shot low, and he had to change, he had to sort of change direction very late and got his hand down low to it. Yeah, Agent's right. Hugo made 3 good saves. I think 1 in the first half, 2 in the second. Okay, well, Hugo made
it's even hard for me to remember who fired the saves. It's easy to remember the misses, like you said. Like Anderson's miss was really close. Ayew had that one spectacular run. I remember the Jordan Ayew went through our whole team, and then as well.
Maybe it was Ayew. Maybe that's the one I'm talking about.
I forget what actually came of it at the end of that run, which is very typical of Jordan Ayew's career. Probably is that he has a spectacular run, and then we don't remember what happens afterwards. But.
Okay, so halftime came 0-0, and I missed the beginning of the first half. But Conte
first half or the second half?
Second half. Apparently, Conte sent the players out early, ready to go, and it just seemed to be sort of, pretty tit for tat. And suddenly, we get the ball break. Perisic crosses 1-0. Dave.
Well, I missed the start of the second half because I was dropping Jack off at his job. He's on holiday this week. So I had to drop him off. Well done, Jack. How did your week go, Jack? And so I had to drop Jack off, and I didn't see start the second half, so I missed the goal. So maybe Jack can talk about it.
Perisic, I would say it was maybe more Perisic's and Kane's goal. I think Messi played a minor part kind of in it. Perisic played, I would say, more of a role. At certain stages, I wouldn't say I doubted Perisic, but I did kind of have question marks about kind of his defensive ability. I felt like he kind of can get, targeted a little bit easily, kind of in one-on-one moments. But let's be honest, like his delivery from these sort of situations has been what we've been relying on, especially when we haven't been playing very well. He can just put in a really wicked ball that almost anybody would be happy to throw their head at. And I think Harry Kane does it in that situation. Harry Kane also really bravely goes after it. I think Gaeta pretty much was going after it, very confidently. And Harry Kane, kind of in true Kane fashion, pretty fearless and just stuck his forehead on it, overpowered I don't even remember what defender he had over him as well. And it was pretty brilliant, I think, from Perisic and Kane. That's kind of been sort of our kind of, how would you put it, our go-to when we really run out of ideas is just get it to Perisic, have him, beat his man, and then whip in the ball to hopefully Harry Kane in the right area. And that's kind of honestly been like I said, our go-to this season. Perisic has been brilliant.
Yeah, James, and quite an important thing, I think Conte would have been very happy, was right behind Harry Kane was Mr. Doherty, ready to try and head it in as well.
Yeah, we had bodies in the box. That's the thing Doherty does, right?
That's the
Can you not
difference
hear me?
between him and Emerson, isn't it? Really? Yeah. Okay.
Well, Emerson
Dave,
is Emerson's somewhere else on the pitch.
What, the subs bench?
Well, I mean, he should be left back in the changing room. He should be left back at the fucking training ground. But
Have
Doherty
you
actually
opened that
gets
bottle of
those
whiskey I
attacking
bought you for your
positions
birthday?
like you want to win back to. No, I've got some Polish beer from the corner shop.
Tisky?
It's from it.
Hmm.
I don't know what it's called. I just know it was £1.20 a can, and it's a pint can, so winner.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, no,
Well,
that's
the
good.
Cameron
inside
Lewis.
season-
Cameron
isn't
would be
Hill messy.
disappointed. Cameron's ears. Cameron likes the craft brews. He'd be
It isn't-
his ears.
It isn't
Can't
Hill
handle.
Messi, it's Hill Cruyff. He looks like Johan and is the next Cruyff. He is
So many
total football.
doppelgangers.
Change my mind.
So many doppelgangers.
£1.28 to come out and say that. That's impressive. That's impressive. I might get a crate of that stuff in.
I'll tell you what.
You're gone.
Go on. No, you go on.
Okay, I mean, it's a couple of things, and I think I said it on the pod this week. So if anyone really wants to hear me talk about this game twice, if they're having trouble sleeping, but Paul, Mr. Muir, and Franco, as always, very entertaining on the pod. Check it out, and Seb and the rest of the gang. The kind of things I find that Longley and Perisic is that to me they look quite similar facially. I get quite confused when the two of them are on the ball. And again, I'm an old man, and you have to bear that in mind. And the other thing as well is, and again, it's a little bit it's a big humble pie week for me. Is that Mr. Longley? He puts in a good cross as well. So the tactic really is that you're seeing, the Brentford goal is a great cross from Clement, and obviously, what's that?
Sorry, I hadn't clocked that they were talking about the United game until Craig just said Calvert-Lewin scored.
Right. So that means Everton will be distracted by their lengthy cup run and be relegated.
More distractions for Frank.
That's me adapting. Do you see that? Clever, eh?
Yeah.
So look, the fact of the matter is that our best two wing backs, it's not hard, is the Doc and Perisic. And similarly, I was really excited about Perisic when he joined. Really excited. And the first few games, it was just the novelty of having a wing back who can cross the ball. And then he looked struggling a bit. He was struggling a bit, I think, after that. But then before the World Cup and after he's come back in, I think he's looked really good. Yeah, he's going to have problems facing a pacey right winger or whatever. But he's a class player. And what I really like about him is he's a winner. He's won things, and he's bringing winning mentality into that dressing room, which is lacking in that regard. So a lot of love for Perisic. I just hope he doesn't play against Pompey. He needs a rest. We need him for the North London derby.
I agree with that.
We will come to our predicted teams for Pompey later on the show. It looks like the game's been chalked off. Shame a good goal.
I think he's put some distance between himself and Sassignon. I mean, maybe he already did this season, but it's just I think it's good to see that we have a maybe less of a friendly Sassignon crowd. You never know sometimes, but when we've really struggled to create anything, I think Perisic is such a brilliant player to have because he could just create something out of nothing in those wide areas, and we're going to probably have to rely on that in plenty of moments this season when we're out of ideas, and that's been a lot of times this season. It feels like we're out of ideas, and he can do it on his own, which is something you have to appreciate. I mean, it'd be nice to have Richarlison for some of those crosses as well, but he's never fit.
No.
Dave, we're going to say something?
Did someone just hear more clattering of crockery? Sorry. We've had a crockery incident before the start of the show in the green room. So Cess, what sums up Cess is that chance at the end when he got out-jumped by Ayew or whoever it was at the far post. Remember that? He just made no physical attempts to get to that whatsoever. As I said, continually, this is his make or break season. And as far as I'm concerned, he's not doing enough. If we want to challenge top four, we want to challenge top honours, he's not good enough. Sorry.
Do you know what Cess reminds me of a little bit? So I used to play Sunday League football, right? Played for 9 years, right? And he reminds me of a guy I was friends with on that team. He was quite quick. He was okay on the ball, but a gust of wind blew, and he fell over. That's what Seth reminds me of. That guy. I won't say his
I
name
think he's
because I'm
so
still friends with
clumsy
him.
on the ball.
But
You're
just
just
not good
expecting
enough.
more from Cesc.
Right.
Just expecting more from him, aren't you? That you look at what he did as a 16-year-old, where he did beat players, he had shots in, and I don't know if the injuries have destroyed his confidence or what it is, but I mean, Craig's mentioned Udogie here, had a great game first week back. Udogie does look a hell of a player, and if he can keep his form up and we can keep him fit next season, Cesc is going to go, isn't it? There's nowhere for Cesc to go really at Spurs.
Like,
Time to move on, Jack.
has Cesc suffered Aaron Lennon syndrome, as it were? Got kicked a lot and slowed down a bit, lost confidence. I mean, it does happen.
It seemed
I
like
don't
he
think
just
Cesc
had
has
too
ever
many
got-
repeated injuries, right? He had too many repeated injuries in the same sort of area, from what I heard, and then he had a major surgery. Is that right, to fix it? And I could be lying, right now as I speak, but I think he might have had some sort of surgery. And whenever you do have a surgery to try to fix something at a young age, I mean, I don't know, it's just not good. Usually the young players shouldn't have such major injuries, because that means a lot of their sort of athletic ability and all those sort of things they can't rely on really as much anymore. And I think with Sessegnon, he also just looks really clumsy on the ball to me. He's just way too kind of clunky is maybe the better word. Way too clunky on the ball, kind of feels like, for a left wing back, let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So it didn't take long anyway for Harry to score. Obviously, Harry's had a big effect on the Palace in more than one way this week, hasn't he, Dave?
Hey, very good. I do like the way that, I mean, yes, absolutely. But with Cesc, what I love about this show is that I reckon Cesc was on the pitch for 15 to 20 minutes top whack, and we've just demolished his career at Tottenham. I like that. That's cool, as far as I'm concerned. But look, Harry is he's next level. So I think I'd like him rested against Portsmouth, and I want him to get those 2 goals to beat Greaves. Is it equal or beat Greaves' record against the Goons? That would be beautiful.
Right, he needs 2 goals to equal Greavesy. So
yeah,
a hat-trick against Arsenal would be the perfect way, wouldn't it?
It would, wouldn't it? And the third one is a penalty to just vanish
in the
it
top
all
corner
in the top corner, and then
against
that's it.
Ramsdale.
That against
Yeah.
the Goons, that would be fantastic. Look, we're so reliant on him at the moment. We really are. What I would love to see is when Richarlison is fit, because we play a 3-5-2, and the 2 up top are Richarlison and Kane, and you can rotate that round with Sonny as well. It gives us some optionality. That's what I would like. But he's come back into it. He's obviously come from a massive psychological disappointment. That he's said again this week that he's not going to forget this for the rest of his life. But he's a person who's come through adversity in his career, a very slow start to the career, unsuccessful loan periods, and he's made the most out of. That'd be nice. He's made the most out of what he's perceived to be his kind of limited talent, which we know he hasn't got. He's a generational talent. We're blessed to have him at the club for however long.
Yeah, and then it wasn't long before the second goal, Jack, for Kane.
No, it wasn't. And I think it's maybe the thing that was nice to see too was Harry Kane be so ruthless with his finishes as well. And this is where Hill Messi comes in. And I'm glad that you asked me on that second goal, because for him, it was probably one of the more simpler things he maybe did in the game. I think he was just creative and was kind of just constantly causing Joel Ward a lot of issues. Let's be honest, Joel Ward was sort of playing out of position, and is also a dear friend of yours, so we heard, John. And it's not maybe fun to see Hill Messi come into Hill Messi, causing a friend of the pod or a friend of the channel some torment, with all the body feints, all the shoulder feints. But yeah, I would say Bryan Gil, I think, played just more of a, let's say, a fill-in for the Kulusevski role, which is basically that guy that we use out on the right wing to be able to maybe draw a little bit of attention to himself, so that it frees up more space for players like Kane, players like Son, and then also has that ability to find them with a pass. And I think Kulusevski, we know, does that better than anybody. And we're maybe seeing that Hill Messi can sort of try to fill that role in the best way that he can. He's not going to fill it physically. I think Kulusevski by far is much more physical than Hill, but he has that sort of understanding of football and has that sort of vision that can't always teach. And even Antonio Conte said he doesn't need to teach him football. He doesn't need to teach him how to understand the game any differently. In fact, it's really just more about him learning about the game physically and about learning more about the Premier League, which is all good signs to hear. And even I think Antonio Conte's quotes on Hill were basically identical to what he said after the Frankfurt game, where he had a really big impact, was in that Frankfurt game in the Champions League.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the second goal, I would say the pass was lovely, but I think he did plenty more brilliant things, before that. So it's almost, it made it look easy. It made it look easy.
I think for Jack and the Irish Hotspur channel, Hill Messi represents like a band or an artist who's kind of a cult figure, who they go on about how great it is and what a talent it is, and then one day they have that kind of platinum million-selling album, and they're massive around the world, and it's kind of that vindication moment for them. And I'm genuinely pleased for you, Jack, and the rest of the gang on the Irish Hotspur channel, including my namesake David Harris. This is your moment. This is your week.
Let's hope we're not a one-hit wonder after this with the Hill Messi. Can't rely on one song now, can we?
No.
This is the big question. Can he follow it up? I mean, obviously, we probably expect him to play against Portsmouth, but if Kulusevski's not fit, and we have no idea, you get very little information out of Spurs, do you, medical-wise, if he's going to be fit. James, what was your thought on Hill's performance?
I thought he was superb. I thought he was our only attacking player in the first half who looked like making anything happen. His awareness of where other players in the team is brilliant, and he just always looks like he wants to do something, and I really like that in a player. He looks like he wants to take someone on. He looks like he wants to take a shot, play it forward. He's just got that energy, right? Which at times we have seen players look like they can't be fucked. Hill looks like he wants to do 20 things at once, which can sometimes be to his detriment, but he always looks like he wants to do something, which I really like. I think his pass for Kane's goal looks really, really simple, but it isn't the easiest pass to play because you've got two people in front of you. I mean, it was awful defending by Palace, but it was still the perfectly weighted pass. And, he played 10 more minutes in the Palace game than he did in the Villa game. Honestly, he's a young guy, and this is obviously what was seen in him by Paratici. He is very small. I don't think he's going to put more weight on. He still will be bullied off the ball by some people, but there are other small guys in the Premier League. David Silva wasn't a huge guy. Bernardo Silva isn't huge, right? And I think maybe if he did put a bit of weight, would he lose a bit of his agility? You don't have to be like bulked up. You haven't got to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, right, to play in the Premier League. And yeah, I thought he was very good. I think he'll probably play tomorrow, and I think him having a run of games will be beneficial. Obviously, I still want Kulusevski to play in the North London derby, but I'm now looking at Hill and thinking he's a guy who, if we're behind in the game or we're winning comfortably, you can bring him on, and I think it's okay. He's another option. He's got loads of energy. He's brilliant for that. And again, we need rotation options in every position. I think he can be that rotation option for Kulusevski now.
I just want to say that I think Jack was downplaying that pass that he did for the second goal, because looking at that pass again, that was Modric-esque, that pass. Okay. And the other thing, and I was thinking about this, I have been thinking about old Hill Messi in the last few weeks as well, is that if you look at when Modric came to the Premier League, they are kind of a similar-esque build and frame, right? I think Modric came to Tottenham. I think he was a couple of years older than when Hill Messi turned up for us, right? So, I think that it is about building up the core and the frame, as Gov says. And, and I think that, what I like about him, I agree with you, James. He has, when he's played and he's come on and he's got every right to be kind of disenchanted with his lot in life, he's actually shown up. I mean, we've seen plenty of players over the years in a Spurs shirt who've hidden when they're not in form and when the going gets tough. The issue that I always had with Hill is in the context of buying him in the first place and spending 25 or however much we spent on him plus Coco. I mean, the good thing is he facilitated Coco leaving Tottenham, and I'll always be grateful to Hill Messi for that one. But the fact of the matter is that we just finished 7th. We qualified for the Conference League. We'd had an awful season, really. And I felt in the context of the squad and squad strengthening, we needed here and now players. We didn't need the Spanish under-21 left winger turning up for 25 mil. And that was my problem. Yeah, and that was my problem with the transfer. And then my second thing, the real problem that I had was if Conte's saying he's not big enough for English football and he needs to bulk out, don't send him on loan back to Spain because he's a youngish guy. He needs to acclimatise to living in England and English football. So he should have gone on loan to an English Championship club. Yeah. And that was my issue with it. So
I don't think anybody disagrees with sorry.
I think basically Conte was like, I don't want him. He was supposed to be going out on loan in August, end of August, but we didn't get a replacement in. So now Conte's realised he's actually got to use him because he's forced to for the injuries. And he's worked with him over the World Cup. I mean, what I found interesting was the huge hug that Conte gave him. He gave him such a big hug. And you're right, that pass was... Kane was like pointing for it there.
Yeah.
There's not many players in our team that would play that pass because there was two defenders so close to each other. And it was an eye of the needle job. It was pinged. That's the one thing about Hill. He does ping the ball. And when you see City, they ping the ball to each other. And over the years, under AVB, and when it was going wrong under Poch and under Jose, there's time, and even under Conte, there's times when we stroke it round really slowly. You need the ball pinged. A professional footballer should be able to control the ball. And most of our players, okay, some of our players can't, but Kane can control the ball if it's pinged at him generally, can't he?
I liked how James described it, where he wants to do a million things the moment he gets it. And I think you could say that's just what you want sometimes in those type of players that are very positive the moment they receive the ball, that they're willing to maybe take risks. They're willing to lose it at times. They're willing to maybe get shoved off the ball, but it's all in the effort to try to be more positive with it than other players that are kind of more reluctant and would rather just kind of, like you said, sort of pass it from side to side, which feels like Spurs have always had a knack to have plenty of those type of players who enjoy passing it more to side to side. And another thing maybe with Hill is that, yes, he could try to get as much strength, but I kind of have heard, and maybe agreed with people that sometimes you're only given what you're given kind of physically. There's only so much strength he can really add. It's kind of more up to him to continue to understand the Premier League and learn how to play around, not being the strongest guy, kind of like Modric did and kind of like plenty of other players. It's actually, you don't really need to be the strongest guy. I think it's more sometimes like being able to take the punishment, being able to take kind of the physicality, being able to be shoved over, knocked over, and get up again and do the same thing all over again. That's what makes Modric probably more incredible, is that we've seen him probably get clattered before, but he just gets up and doesn't look phased at all by it. Same thing with the actual Lionel Messi, is that we've seen him get absolutely torn apart and killed in games, and he shows up the next match and does the same thing. And that's maybe more what the smaller framed sort of players just need to do, is kind of maybe more just be mentally tough after all the hits and all the, the scraping and all the pulling of kits and shirts that they have to deal with.
Yeah, and the other thing about Hill is he's played left wing all his career. And now Conte wants him to play on the right. So he's having to learn to play on the other side of the pitch. So it is a different role. I did do some research before he came to the club. He did play about 10 games or so for Eibar that season on the right. So it was slightly a bit of a misnomer in La Liga, though, isn't it? Very different in La Liga, but it's not like it was completely foreign to him. And as we see the way he understands the game, he probably isn't too hard for him to play really anywhere. He just, the way he understands the game and sees the game, he can probably play most areas in that creative sort of kind of front line. Last thing is, I think the reason maybe Conte gave him that big hug, John, is because even Stellini alluded to the fact that he's been working very hard in training. You see that he also wants to win the ball back at any stage. He's kind of a bit like a little tiny mosquito where you kind of can just turn your back on him and he's not going to win it from you. But you saw how many times he loved pushing Zaha and just like being a bit of a nuisance, kind of like with all the pressing, kind of like Richarlison does too, just constantly pressing, constantly trying to win the ball back. And I think maybe Conte might soften up to somebody who kind of plays that sort of way. Yeah. Okay. So Harry's second goal it was his 300th appearance in the Premier League. I think 3 of those were for Leicester City. 198 goals, all for Tottenham, 44 assists, 3 golden boots. And we've already discussed his Greaves record, Dave, that he's close to, Dave.
Mm.
Is he going to get Shearer's record as a Spurs player?
Oh, you've just given me a nasty question, haven't you? Thanks for that. He's got he's got a year and a half to go. And if you look in, if he wants to stay in the Premier League and he goes somewhere else, I think the natural home is Manchester United. I think because I think obviously City have got Haaland, Liverpool possibly. Who else is there? The Geordies. He could go up to Newcastle, but I'm not quite sure that's how they want to play the game. Kane's in his, obviously with 3 years left on his contract and playing golf with Gary Neville, he was in a bad negotiational position with Levy and the board, gentleman's agreement or otherwise. It's different now. He's got a year and a half to go. If I was him and leaving, I'm obviously Tottenham through and through, and I want what's best for the club. If I was him and the situation that I'm in, this is going to be his last big contract of his career, really. I reckon he could play till about 35. I would run the contract down and see what the options are for him. That's what I would do in his position. I mean, again, as we've said many times before, and HG's pointed that out, is the future of Kane and the future of Conte are intrinsically linked. If Conte signs an extension, 1-2 years, I think Kane might sign a similar kind of extension. And if I was advising Kane, I'd make sure the contract term lines up with Conte's term, with optionality to get out if he wants to. If I was advising him, that's what I would do. Again, so that that's what it is.
James, do you see Kane signing a contract in the next, before the start of next season?
Before the start of next season. Okay. It depends, right, on a couple of things. Let's say hypothetically, in this window we go out to spend, which I think we will. We definitely will. And then Conte's happy and signs a contract, right? Soonish. Okay. Hypothetically. And it's a longish term one, like 3 years or whatever. And we get top 4. In that case, then yes, I think he probably does. Because he can see there is clear intent in the club. Why would you walk away from the club you've played with for so long and Antonio Conte as manager, who's just signed a long-term contract? The other situation in which I can see him possibly staying, even if Conte goes, is if Mauricio Pochettino comes back, because we know they have a very good relationship. There is a very real possibility that he will. My worry is if he gets down to the last year of his contract, the sports media are going to be completely insufferable about it, taking him to golf games to discuss his next move. Like, all right, let's take bloody Rashford for a golf game to discuss his next move to a bigger club. Because, it's not the 1990s anymore and Man U aren't actually that good anymore. Anyway, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to think about Harry Kane playing for anyone other than Spurs because I'm going to be quite upset when that happens, if I'm honest. Because for all of the years of watching Spurs, I can really remember beyond 2 memories of watching us draw 2-2 with Leeds in the FA Cup when I would have been, how old was I? Six
the
or
Leeds
7?
game, that was 2010, wasn't it? So you'd have been 7.
So, 7. Yeah, I don't beyond vague memories of that and Harry Redknapp, the Spurs that I remember watching and remembering is Pochettino onwards, right? I have memories before that, but that's the era I remember, and it's been linked inextricably to Harry Kane, right? He's been there the entire time, and he's just always scored and scored and scored and scored, and he's just always showed up. And he's one of the few players who has been consistently so good for club and country, and he doesn't do terrible things that come up in newspapers. He just seems like a guy who wants to play football and get on with his professional life, which is refreshing, Because how many top England players in history can you say that about? Not many. I don't want to think about it. He's going to sign a new contract. It's going to be fine.
Thanks, Jay. I'm just going to say that United have got a penalty in the 96th minute to go 3-1 up. I think they're just the VAR looking at the moment. But I'm obviously watching on the app. So if you're watching live, you can tell me if it has been given.
So that means
Jack,
Everton can focus now on relegation and not on the FA Cup.
they can focus on relegation and the big relegation dogfight with Southampton next week. Jack,
Thanks.
thoughts on Kane and contract?
There's so many working parts. It's a domino effect or a knock-on effect, however you want to put it. It's probably dependent on Antonio Conte getting his extension. That probably hinges on us getting top 4 and Antonio Conte feeling like Levy and Enoch can promise him certain things that maybe they haven't promised certain managers of the past. And I don't know. It's a huge wait and see, and it's a difficult wait and see. I think Antonio Conte and Kane's contracts are very linked to each other, like James had said. And I don't know. I think we have to wait for Antonio Conte to extend before we can talk about Harry Kane extending, because is he really even going to stick around for Pochettino? Like, because even if Daniel Levy told him that Pochettino is the one to replace Conte, I'm not sure if Kane is going to stick around for Pochettino. I genuinely couldn't answer that, because I feel like they sort of turned on Poch at a certain, towards the end there. And I'm not sure if Kane was one of them, but we all know that certain players would have to go even before Poch was kind of brought in. They would have to definitely get rid of players that have been here for quite a while. So it's very difficult. I think it probably is all dependent on, Conte.
Jack, you had to go and do it 55 minutes in, and you with the first mention of the L word and the E word. We were doing so well.
Yeah, it had to be me. It had to be me.
So
well behaved during the Hill Messi part, and then somehow misbehaved in that moment. Yeah,
the Hill Messi part was your moment. That was your coronation.
I know, and I behaved myself there, and didn't do it in this part, which is odder.
I think as far as Kane, where he would go potentially, I can't see United hanging on for 18 months without a striker. I think they're going to sign someone this summer. Probably not this month, but I think they'll sign a big player this summer to play up front.
I mean, the other thing as well is... go on.
Well, will it be like the whole Haaland thing, where now City don't need him? I mean, will he run out of sort of places to go?
Well, there is Real Madrid, because I believe Ancelotti he's retiring at the end of the season, which means Kane's got one.
He's going to Canada, isn't he?
Is he going to Canada? Yeah, he's going to Canada, isn't he?
Yeah, his wife's Canadian. He wants to marry. He wants to coach Canada.
He wants to go and see Celine Dion and Bryan Adams in Canada. What was I going to say? I think, and Benzema can't carry on forever. I mean, how old is Benzema now? I mean, he just goes on and on and on. So
35, 36.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to bear in mind, and I hate to say it, is that maybe Richarlison's Kane's replacement all along. We didn't realise. So, I think that, as I said, if I'm in Kane's position, I'd run that contract down. Or if Conte signs up for another couple of years, we'll see how we go. I totally get where James is coming from, because, and I hope I'm not being patronising here, but Kane's possibly the first hero for you, James. The memories are tied up with him, with the club and things like that. I felt the same way as well, until a certain person who wants to get a knighthood this week went off to that mob down the road across to the Woolwich, and then my faith was shattered that fateful day in 2001. So like anyone in life, there's no loyalty. You want to do the best you can. It's a short career, and but the thing to round it all off, what I really enjoy as a fan and as a supporter of this club and I've been going 45 years this year, is that I love it when we win away and the scenes at the end, when you see it on the telly and when you're in the ground, and that the Conte and the players are going up to the supporters at the end, and you just feel, it always gives me a goosebumps moment, even sitting here in Sydney watching it, because that's when the real connection is between the players and the fans and the manager, and the manager sees how much it is to the fans. And after such a dispiriting performance against Villa, and to go to the Palace, win 4-0, and the hug of Gil at the end and all of that, I'm hoping that this performance is the turnaround point and a momentum for us for the rest of the season. It really could be.
Yeah. King Huddle says he won't leave England until he's broken record. I agree with that. Born to Lose is mentioning Bayern Munich in the next comment. So I think Bayern Munich's probably out for the time being. That leaves United, City unlikely, Newcastle, Liverpool. Liverpool probably at the moment would be the one, I imagine. But
But I think
So-
they need new. I think they'll need new owners to do that deal. I mean, I
But
think
in 18 months, it'll be done, won't it?
yeah, they'll have new owners in 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the third goal. So Kane,
Sorry.
okay, Kane
Carry
beat a
on.
couple of players on the some real number 9 hold-up play by Kane. Moot cut in from the left, pass the ball to Sonny, and you just thought Sonny of last season pops that in the bottom corner, but he tried to beat my friend Joel Ward. Joel Ward just pushed him to the side, and he tried to cross it back to Kane. It deflected straight to Doherty, who instinctively poked it home, Jack.
Yeah, a shame on Joel. He took away a goal from Sonny there. I feel like, I don't know, Sonny probably could have pulled the trigger there, actually. It was a little disappointing that he hadn't. And I guess it all worked itself out at the end. Went to Doherty. Probably a lot of people who are Emerson critics, or even people who maybe kind of defend Emerson. I've kind of defended Emerson at times. For some, I think sometimes it's gone a bit over the top, some of the criticism. But I feel like I'll admit he definitely would not have finished that in the way that Doherty did. I think Doherty, despite not really having the best of games, we know he can have better games than what he did against Palace, but he did exactly what we've been missing at right wing back at a lot of times, which is a bit more technical quality. And I thought he offered that with that left-footed finish. He had an absolute slice of a shot before where Sonny was kind enough to give his souvenir into the stands a bit more softly. It kind of landed probably kind of nicely for someone to catch. Doherty absolutely sliced it into somebody's face from close range with his other chance with the right foot. So he was able to somehow finish it with the left. Very, very well, actually. Very well.
Yeah, and he put one wide as well early in the second
Yeah, that was
half,
the one I
think.
was referring to, the slice, the one.
Oh, sorry.
The one he sliced.
That
It was
so
like
what,
from
so what he
close
did
range.
then, he also blasted one into one of the Palace players' chests from.
Oh, I didn't know. I
quite
don't
close
remember
as
that
well.
one. Yeah, I don't remember
Yeah,
that
no.
one.
So he was, he was getting in there, and obviously he was close for the first goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is what Conte's system is all about. Those wing backs have to get up there. And what I'm hopeful of now is that with Doherty coming at the far post, Perisic can find him. Perisic is capable. And when Doherty scored that goal at Leeds last season, that was when he had it was like confidence flowed through him, and he had a really good run until Matt Cash broke him at Villa, 6-7 games later. And I'm really hopeful we'll see Doherty flying now. I'm just worried we're going to see Emerson Royale tomorrow against Pompey, which I'd much rather see Spence, but I think Doherty will be rested.
It would really speaks to Spence, though, if he it speaks to how much Conte really doesn't like Spence if he doesn't play tomorrow, though. That would really
the only thing I might see, he might play Spence as one of the front three. I could see him doing that potentially because he has brought him on there in the last couple of games. And then James, the fourth goal, finally, Mr. Son breaks his Baron spell.
He got a goal. It wasn't superb. He got lucky on the finish. It took a slight deflection. And again, Hill involved in the build-up for that. He got his goal, right? The points were wrapped up by that point, but he got the goal. You could tell how, like, I was going to say happy, but I think relieved is in equal measure there. You could tell how much it meant to him to get that goal. And if that's what Son needs to go be at the level we know he can hit, then we're going to be doing a lot better for the rest of the season, because he has struggled this season. And I think too much of it is him getting in his own head. Like he wants to, score, create, but he almost thinks, I have to do it all myself now. I think he tries to, he overcomplicates in his own head. He overthinks, right? And I just hope getting that goal means he can relax and, not get some in his own head. It's good. You got your goal against Palace. Good job. Next game, just don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. I hope we don't see Emerson tomorrow. I hope we see Jeff Spence instead. Hell, I mean, I'd rather see some random bloke from the local pub playing it right back, Do like a lottery, right? Everyone in the stadium puts in a quid. Then, it's number 292. Yeah, you're playing right back today. Come on. Could be some 92-year-old woman. I reckon she'd do a better job.
What about the kid who looked really good that you played with and was blown over by a gust of wind? Maybe he's available to play tomorrow.
Well, he's not
probably in the
Spurs
pub,
fan,
Dave.
sadly. No, he doesn't drink. He's teetotal. but he is unfortunately a scummer, so he wouldn't play for us.
Right. Okay. Well. Okay. I think Spence might not play tomorrow if he's going to go out on loan and they don't want a cup time.
I don't think cup time means much these days. I think it means very little in the grand scheme of things. But if he's not in Conte's plans,
does to me.
No, Jack. If he's not in Conte's plans, the chances are he'll just be on the bench when he's back up.
Yeah, I guess it would really, like I said, just really confirms that Conte doesn't want him and that they probably don't want each other. And that kind of also is kind of a sad situation where Spence then doesn't really want to be here because Conte doesn't want him here. And then it's sort of all connected to, I don't know, the original transfer in the first place, whether it was actually one made by Paratici and Conte, because I think we know Paratici and Conte probably have a pretty close relationship, maybe on the transfers, but this one kind of seemed to be a bit separate from the rest of them, or at least from Paratici and Conte's guidance. And we maybe thought that he would be happy to see a guy like Spence, but it really just hasn't worked at all. I think the other David Harris had a bit of a theory that it could be the case that Antonio Conte's not playing Jed Spence out of maybe a bit of like integrity, or kind of to just sort of, you could say, stick it to the ownership a little bit, because he wanted maybe his own choice of a right wing back. He wasn't given maybe the right wing back that he wanted, and so the one that they gave him, he's just going to continue to not use, kind of as a, you could say, a bit of a a bit of a, I don't know, a mission or a protest, if you will, and maybe to not let the ownership kind of dictate who he can and can't have.
Okay, Dave. Pulling it back to the Son's goal. Were you? Gov said here that Son's come out and said he's finding it difficult to see the ball wearing the mask. Were you impressed how he held off Gahey, the Palace defender, and went through to score the goal, given the poor form he's been in?
Well, I mean, like 2 minutes before that, he missed an absolute sitter one-on-one. Now, I know it was called up for offside, but he, I know. Look, the thing with Son is this. I think the mask is a bit of a furphy, as they say down here, because before he had the mask, he wasn't playing very well anyway. I mean, I remember, I think it was Eintracht Frankfurt away. He missed 2 or 3 bloody good chances in that game, right? And his confidence is it's just interesting with his confidence from the point of view of, he seems to be really up and down with his confidence. And for someone who is, is Asia's best ever player of all time, and joint Golden Boot winner last year, it's just surprising that he's like that. And James is right. You can see it. He's almost trying too hard. But this season, I think that he, against Brentford away, for example, there was a couple of moments in the game he had 2 or 3 good runs, but he was really poor at releasing the ball. It was almost Lamella-esque in that way. And that's something you don't expect to see. I think and I said this on the pod this week, or it's discussed on the pod this week, that maybe it's him playing with Perisic, because obviously Son's MO is getting the ball on the left-hand side, cutting in and scoring, cutting in and bending it in with his right foot. And we're seeing less of that this season. Maybe because he's not used to having a left wing back or a left full back who's any good, which he's got with Perisic this season. But good players are good players. As I said, like Son, very sentimental about him. His first game, I took the boys to see. The Palace game was his first goal for the club. We all wish him well. It's just that I'm hoping again this is the goal that kick-start him for the rest of the season, because he's not played well this season. And of course, other comments of, he's not good with the back, with facing into midfield and holding the ball. That's not his game. I get that, but he has played up on his own a couple of times in a pacey way, and he looked good. He just needs to. If Richarlison was fit, he should have been rotated more with him as an impetus to get him in the team. But that's where we are.
So game ended 4-0. We are 5th. As I said on Wednesday, crisis. What crisis, Jack? We're not in a bad position, are we?
I sort of explained this, and maybe I forget when I was asked this question, are we out of the top 4 race? And I was like, yes, we're in a horrible doom and gloom moment right now where we don't really think we could win a game and we don't have any confidence in this team. But to say that we are literally out of it is absurd. We're mathematically very close to the rest of these teams. And when you even look at the goals conceded versus the goals scored, look at that. We scored more goals than the rest of these teams that were around. We have no problem with scoring goals. we just have an issue with keeping goals out of our own net, which is going to make things very difficult for getting in a top 4 if we continue to concede through these Eric Dyer mistakes and Hugo mistakes and the rest of the team, let's be honest, mistakes. But we have no issue with scoring goals, and we're only 2 points behind the likes of Newcastle, who could slip up at a certain stage. They are kind of have the benefit, I think, of not having European competition. They're like Arsenal from last season, where they get to just sort of, have nowhere near the fixture kind of congestion, and they can kind of just play and prepare for each and every game with kind of the same 11. So there is kind of the benefit there. But Man United, you could still see them slipping up. I don't know. It's hard to be confident as a Spurs fan, John, but I thought it was a little ridiculous to see people kind of completely writing off top 4 when we're like we just see right now, only 2-3 points behind some of these teams. And I don't know. I can see why there's no confidence, but literally we're very much still in it. Nope.
You've muted yourself, John.
Somehow I can't hear you, John.
We can't
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, there are 73 people watching and there's only 30 likes. Please do click the like button. It really helps us out. It doesn't cost you anything. Just got to click that little thumbs up. Thank you very much. Right. So shall we have a look at the Portsmouth game? We are playing at 12:30 lunchtime tomorrow. So that's early start for you, Jack. 7:30 a.m.
Yeah, it's don't have to do any of the pre-match kind of shenanigans of the build-up and the pump-up and all that stuff. Just get to rock up with a coffee watching the game.
Okay, well, I'm going to be picking James up at about 7:45 a.m. so we can drive up there because there's a train strike. So we've got to drive all the way from the south coast up around London. So that's going to be fun. And it's his birthday on Monday. So there will be drinks. So if you see us, feel free to buy him a drink.
We'll find you on the Skywalk.
Yeah, James,
look like
looking forward to this?
Buy me a drink, please. Oh, hell yeah. I'll turn my camera so you can actually hear me without the audio cutting out. Also, yes, if anyone sees me, I'll be the weird guy in a leather jacket and blue jeans. Any drink, pint, whatever, I'll appreciate it. Well, I'll take a photo with you and you can be named as cool on the cheese room. Anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. This is our tradition because my birthday is always on the weekend of the third round of the FA Cup. So yes, it is. Yeah, Portsmouth is where I live. That's my hometown, funnily enough. So do you know what? Even if Spurs lose, I can just be like, nah, my local club won. Nah, joking. But it's FA Cup, and hopefully we get to see Sarr play a few more minutes. Maybe Spence will play some minutes, but Skip will definitely start. It'll be nice to see some of the younger guys who we've seen little flashes of get a proper game. I hope Hill starts, right? Because I think he will, definitely. I really hope Hill gets a goal because I think he deserves it based on his performance last game. And I think this is a good chance for that. I just don't want a bloody repeat of Morecambe last year where we were terrible and we had to bring Kane and Son on to rescue us, but I don't think we will. And Portsmouth haven't looked good recently, so I think we'll be okay.
Okay. So Danny Cowley, who was obviously had a very successful spell at Lincoln, took over Portsmouth last season with his brother as assistant manager. He was sacked on Monday or Tuesday night. Now, interesting that I've seen no real negative comments about Cowley as a person. The fans really, really liked him, but it just hasn't really worked. As you can see from the graphic on the screen, they've lost 2 and drawn 2 of their last 4 games. And with the EFL Trophy playoff before that, beating Stevenage. And before that, I saw the Wickham game because it was live on Sky, and they were poor. Mm-hmm. Dane Scarlett did play in that game. But there's just something not quite right. Pompey are a big club. They've got a big, big fan base. Their stadium needs some work, admittedly, but they shouldn't be in League One, Davo.
No, they shouldn't. They won the FA Cup, and they're a big club. Great support. I think that I'm surprised that they're in the league, they're in the division that they are in. But I was reading a bit about them yesterday, and the chart result I think was the final straw when they lost 3-1 at home, and apparently the atmosphere was pretty toxic there, and then the Cowley brothers had to go.
Yeah, absolutely. The little graphic you found me, Dave. Here's the Colby Bishop is their top scorer, 14 goals. A lot of those have been penalties. Dane Scarlett's only got 3 league goals, and 2 of those were in one game. I don't think he'll be playing tomorrow. He hasn't played in the FA Cup, and I can't see Spurs letting him play against us. Conor Ogilvie, is that a name you remember, Dave? Former Spurs youth player. He's a left back.
Yeah, I followed his career very closely.
Yeah,
when
I
he was
thought
at
you might have
Tottenham. Yeah.
But there's not a lot of goals in this Portsmouth team. But I think Adrian said there'll be no Ndombele, so no repeat of Morecambe. We have to, pay teams like this respect. In 1987, when we got to the final, we played Scunthorpe in the 3rd round and only just beat them 3-2. Come on, Dave, you remember that?
Yes.
We've had some wobbles along the way over the years, so we've got to be on it. I did hear on TalkSport earlier that Kane is going to play, apparently because of the injuries, which does surprise me.
That's why the Richarlison has been very frustrating, because Richarlison is basically brought in to help out, sort of the load on Kane and, just basically help his legs really from not being overrun and overused. And it's been very frustrating to see him not ever available for when Kane probably could use rest and we could still put in somebody good enough to score goals.
Yeah. So, honestly, I was hoping this Pompey fan would come on and enlighten us about as how Pompey would play and stuff, but I don't have a lot of information. So, shall we do a predicted team? Are we going Forster in goal? Is that?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, go with that. I'm going to suggest Sessegnon, Tanganga, and Sanchez will play with Emerson, unfortunately. So just whoever maybe Davis.
Another centre back you might be missing.
Yeah, Davis maybe.
Oh, Davies. Oh, sorry. Davies, yeah. Tanganga, Sanchez. Interesting. Who plays through the middle?
It would probably be Sanchez, wouldn't it? Oh God, that's going to give us some heart attacks, isn't it?
I'd have Dyer because he didn't play against Villa. I'd have Dyer in the middle. I'd have Davis. I'd have Sanchez. I'd have I want Cess to play because I want Perisic rested, and I'd like Spence to play, but he'll probably play Emerson.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, can we see a Sarr and Skip midfield access?
Yes.
I think could be Sarr Basuma.
Oh, Basuma's available, isn't he? Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
probably Sarr Basuma.
Yeah, good shout.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so we know Kane's going to play. So, Sonny to keep his form going. Do you think he'll play the front 3? Or does he stick Spence up there?
I think he goes Son, Kane, Hill, Messi. I think that's what he probably wants to give Sonny more. He doesn't have many other options, and he probably wants to give Sonny more confidence.
I think he's hoping that if we start that and we start the game well and we're ahead, then by the 50th minute or so, then you can 60th minute, then you can stick Harvey White on and you can make those changes. But I think it's almost easier to start with the big guns up top, take control of the game, and not have a repeat of Morecambe where we didn't start the big guns and we went behind. You had to bring the big guns on anyway. So, if you bring on a young guy into a team that's winning anyway, then it's a bit easier for him to come in than as opposed to him starting the game, perhaps. Because, Portsmouth are going to be well up for it, isn't it? It's the FA Cup, right? So I think the front three will remain.
I mean, if we play that pretty much first team, I would see fewer issues than last season. You're right, James. Dave?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, Portsmouth haven't won in about 9. They haven't won a league game in 9, right? And, they're not doing that well. I mean, look, they're going to be well up for it. I think they filled out their capacity, and I think they've asked for more. So, I'd like us to be 3-0 up after 60 minutes to take Kane off. So if Kane gets 2 goals and then he comes off to line him up to break the record against the Goons, that would be nice. I don't want Kane to play.
I think he will. I think if he's got 2, he stays on.
Yeah, I don't want Kane to play tomorrow, whenever.
I agree. None of us do.
It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. The fact that I wouldn't have him playing. I'd have Son. I'd possibly think about a 3-5-2. You got Basuma, Højbjerg, Sarr, Skip. So you can stick 3 of them in the middle, 1 on the bench, and then you have 2 up top. And I'd have Son. Is Cooley not fit still?
Nope.
Don't think so.
I mean, that's the other thing.
Could you play like Romain Mundel or Divine or something like that?
Yeah, why not? Just stick him up top. Put Kane on the bench if the S hits the F. But other than that, it's ridiculous. And we're running him into the ground. And I think it's ridiculous that he's playing. I really do.
Is it not pretty damning though that there's no Lancashire, no Divine, no Donnelly, none of them are getting near the bench when we're playing 6 centre backs / wing backs on the bench? It's just, how can we do that? We must at least put one of these forward players on the bench when we're so light on the ground at the moment.
I just don't see. Okay. I don't know. There might be somebody that he can take Kane off for. Maybe Harvey White. He's done that before. You don't know. Yeah.
Dave. So Portsmouth's owner is Michael Eisner, former CEO of Disney. Do you think he'll see the FA Cup as a bit of a Mickey Mouse competition?
Very good. Well done, John.
Oh, yes, I read your run sheet well, didn't I?
Very good. Well done. I mean, he's come in. I think he's been there quite a few years. He's been there 5-6 years now. And obviously the Cowley brothers, they got the sack. So I think, as I said, it's a bit toxic there. They've got the first team coach is in charge of Simon Bassey, who's the nephew of Welsh siren Shirley Bassey. So, it'll be a good song or two tomorrow. But, I hate to say it, they're in 2 leagues below us. They're struggling. I know there's going to be big support. It's the cup and all the rest of it. We should be beating them 3-4-0. Done.
Yeah, definitely. We obviously beat them in 1967 and 1991 on the way to winning the FA Cup. However, we did lose to them in 2010 on their way to the final that they lost to Chelsea. But I don't know if you remember what happened that week, Dave, after we lost to Pompey.
I do remember what happened that week, and I was very irritated about that loss to Pompey because I was living in Hong Kong at the time. I'd lined up. I had a family occasion to be in London for in May. I had a business trip. I worked around it. It was all set up for me to go to my first FA Cup final since 1987 to see Tottenham in it, and we managed to balls it up against Kevin the Prince Boateng, Ricardo Rocha, Portsmouth, who went down that season, Grant in charge, Crouch missed about 10 sitters, Dawson slipped on the pitch, and I was well pissed off. And then we had the Goons at home and Chelsea at home fighting for top 4. And as usual, I said, "Oh, we've done it now, we fucked it." But we won those games and we went on to qualify for the Champions League for the first time.
Indeed. And just a few weeks later, I got married. So there you go.
Wow. That's what Portsmouth will do for you.
Absolutely. So what? Let's go score predictions. James, score prediction for tomorrow.
4-0.
Jack.
Might repeat the 4-0. I'll go 4-0 as well.
David?
It's at home. At home.
I'm gonna go 4-1. Pompey are gonna score first. And it's all going to get, everyone's going to get moany and toxic. So, the light blue and white balloons will go off. There'll be a flare coming out the Pompey end, and then we'll win 4-1.
There'll be lots of play at Pompey tomorrow. Don't worry about that.
Yes.
7-1, Rob has said.
Yeah.
Crikey.
John, did I get married in Portsmouth? No, I got married in church, Adrian, in Pagham, just down the road here. Very close to a man you'll probably know. Derek Bell lives just around the corner as well. Just, not football related.
Who gave the best?
Actually, funnily enough, I was going to include a tidbit. Funnily enough, Robert Smith lives fairly near the two of us. So there you go.
Yeah. From the queue. Yeah, he does.
My grandparents.
Yeah.
Not me.
Robert Smith is one of your grandparents. What?
No, lives near his grandparents, my parents. That's where James is currently tonight, which is why the internet's not great.
Yes. Is that because Robert Smith's taking up all the bandwidth, recording a new Cure album?
Yeah, he's obviously busy recording. Well, he's recorded 2 apparently. So, but he always says that.
There we go. This is the Choose the Music update.
In about 7 years.
There we go.
Tune in next time where me and Dave debate who's better, Joy Division or New Order.
No contest.
Anyway, I'm going to move on quickly because I know Dave needs to shoot quite quickly. How long you got left, Dave?
We can do another 15, 20. Try and wrap it up.
So, at Dave's request, although I'm a bit worried James and Jack won't be able to play in this, so in the comments you're going to need to play. we're going to bring back the old game because there's far too many games to predict. So we're not going to be predicting the scores of who has played for Pompey and Spurs. And my God, there's a hell of a lot of players that played for both teams. If I tell you, there have been 15 players alone that have played for both Pompey and Spurs in the Premier League, let alone Dane Scarlett and Harvey White. He played last season, and all the loads of players.
Didn't even know I
people
forgot
before
Harvey White was there. I'm going to perform poorly on this
Yeah.
one.
So I'll start with you, Jack, and then we'll go to James, and then we'll go to Dave. It'll probably just be Dave having to do most of it.
Kevin
Jack,
Prince Boateng.
Kevin Prince Boateng is one. Yes. James, can you remember any players who played for Spurs and Pompey?
Jermaine Defoe.
There's a few. Jermaine Defoe is in the comments, correct. Dave?
The old Levy sell 3 for the price of 1, which made his name, Pamaro, Mendes, and Sean Davis. He sold 3 in one go.
He did indeed. We've also got, I'm going to chuck these one out here just so we don't repeat it. We've got Crancher, obviously, Dane Scarlett, Mendes, he who must not be named.
Sir, he who must not be named.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. Who did get a shout out by the singing fans last night.
Peter Crouch played for Portsmouth? Jeez, this is fabulous to know.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story here. So Peter Crouch started at Spurs, was sold to QPR for 60,000, I think. A year later, they sold him to Pompey for 1.2 million. He then went on to play for Villa, Southampton, Liverpool, went back to Portsmouth, and then Spurs, when Harry Redknapp was a manager, bought him to Spurs, bought him from Portsmouth. So he actually was at Portsmouth twice. His debut at Fratton Park was a pre-season friendly for Portsmouth, and it was against Spurs, and Spurs won 5-2. And I was sat in the director's box randomly because I worked at a nightclub in Portsmouth, and I happened to meet Jim Duffy, who was the assistant manager. He went, "Oh, if you ever want tickets, let me know." I went, "Oh, Spurs are playing." So I just thought I was going to sit with like the friends of the players sat, and I end up being chucked into this room, and Harry Redknapp walks in to see all these old chums and says hello to me. I was a bit, what am I doing here? So I end up sitting in the director's box behind Fred Dinage, who will mean nothing to you, Jack, but Dave will know very well who Fred Dinage is.
Love a good itch. Love a good itch.
And we won 5-2. I think the goals were scored by Sheringham, Everson, Rebroth, maybe Ferdinand. I can't remember who scored it, but Peter Crouch scored twice. And that was where I saw Goran Bunjevcevic, God rest his soul, make his debut as Sol Campbell's replacement. And yeah, he wasn't up to against Crouchy, who scored twice.
Wow. That's
There you
just...
go.
So also, when I was working at a club in Portsmouth, Peter Crouch was in there one night, and some bloke just went up and punched him. This poor Crouchy is a gangly 19-year-old going, "Why is a bloke hit me?"
You know, John. You are the
surprised they haven't had
godfather.
you on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, John is the godfather of the Portsmouth nightclub scene.
Yeah, we could have you could have a whole episode on John's knowledge of Crouch's, connection with Portsmouth.
Yeah,
Steve
exactly.
Claridge used to come in quite a lot. He was a regular in the club. There was a few.
There you go.
Which
Surprised
club was this?
Kabul as well. This is surprising. Did Kabul? Am I wrong to say Kabul played for Sunderland at one stage, or am I being crazy? No,
I think you're right.
Yeah, you're right. I think you did.
Yeah, Kabul.
So you had Kabul. Do you want me to give some more
Really-
names?
this is fabulous.
There's loads
trivia.
more names on this list.
I offer no help though.
All right, so you got before. I mean, there was a time before the Premier League, hard as it to believe, but there was Guy Butters. I reckon Guy Butters. I reckon possibly Paul Moran, Mark Robson, Jamie O'Hara. I reckon Fenwick went there.
He did. I served Terry Fenwick a pint of lager once in the previous club I worked in Portsmouth as well.
Probably would have served him several lagers that night if the room was.
Well, I just served him one myself.
Only one of the many.
Yeah, one of the many. We are also forgetting Darren Anderton, a great player.
Of course.
Who else was there that went to Portsmouth? That's quite a few, really. Gary Stevens played at Portsmouth.
Yeah, he did indeed.
Yeah. And
there was a swap deal in '92.
In '92. So that was Anderson. Yeah. Well, Anderson came.
Yeah, who went the other way?
It wasn't Paul Moran. It wasn't Stevens.
First name's correct. Second name.
Paul.
Pink swishy, long hair.
Walshy.
Yep.
Walshy went to Portsmouth. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Sean
Waterloo's got it.
Davis. Yeah. Nice
Yeah.
one. Paul Walsh. There's been who else is there? There's
Right.
been,
Okay. I've got
Phil
a very
Gray.
long
Did
list
he do
here.
one? Phil Gray.
Say who?
Phil Gray.
Phil Gray. I think he might have done actually, but he didn't play for Spurs, did he?
He did. I think he played.
Did he?
No, I think he did. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. On this list on my eyes have seen the glory.com, but MEHSTG.com. Rory Ellen, Darren Anderson, Gary Brady, Frank Brettel, who played in 1899.
Good player.
Charlie Britton, no idea. Alex Sandy Brown, goal scorer for Spurs in the 1901 Cup final. Michael Brown, who incidentally we signed in December of a transfer window. So we actually signed him before January the 1st. I think he's probably the only player we've ever signed before a January transfer window. Guy Butters, he who must not be named. John Collins, young defender who played a few games at Spurs, moved to Portsmouth amongst other sides. Don't know when. Freddie Cox played 138 games for Spurs, scoring 24 goals and served as Portsmouth manager between 58 and 61. Peter Crouch, a man that's blocked me on Twitter. Not many have. Jason Cundy, Charlie Daniels, Sean Davis, Jermaine Defoe, Justin Edinburgh. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Terry Fennick, Alex Glenn, Mickey Hazard went there after leaving Chelsea before going to Swindon. Ian Hendon, Bill Joyce, Eunice Cabal, Sid McLennan, Luke McGee, who was a keeper.
Yeah, he was.
I think we loaned them.
Yeah.
Neil McNabb went there.
Good player.
Pedro Mendes. Remember those two great goals Pedro Mendes scored against City?
I was very upset when we sold Pedro Mendes. I really like Pedro Mendes.
Yeah. John Moncur went on loan there. Paul Moran, as you said, went on loan there. No Paramo. Yeah. Cliff Parker, left winger, who played Portsmouth from 33 until 53, winning the FA Cup in 39, played once for Spurs as a guest during the war. So Alf Ramsey started his career at Portsmouth before becoming a Spurs player.
There you go.
Ricardo Rocha, Matt Riley, there's no information. Wayne Routledge.
It's like an entire plane full.
Oh, God.
You could fill an airplane.
Yeah, exactly.
Art Rule, who played in 1905. Teddy Sheringham. Tim Sherwood. Ugh. Harry Sparrow, no information. Gary Stevens. Andy Turner, who is probably still our youngest ever goal scorer in the Premier League, isn't he, Dave?
Not King. I know King's the fastest. Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah. Solomon Upton. Terry Venables was a player for Spurs and a manager at Spurs and at Portsmouth. Paul Walsh, Anton Walks, Charlie Whitchurch, and Harvey White. Normally we have about 8 players, don't we? That's like the biggest list ever.
Yes.
And Dane Scarlett, obviously. I don't know if I mentioned him. So yeah, quite the list. Shall we quickly move on to brief? I don't know, Jack, where you're at with transfer talk. Obviously, this has kicked everything off with everyone at the moment. Fabrizio tweeting, understand Pedro Porro is still top of the list for Tottenham as a new right back. Spurs will try and sign Porro as a player. And Porro would be keen on the move. It's difficult in January. Sporting a very clear 45 million euros clause or no way. Stance could change in June. Is this going to not happen, Jack?
All they have to do is just pay 45 million compared to maybe other transfers where you do have to sort of negotiate, and it is a bit of a long kind of process. With this one, they kind of don't really need to care very much about dealing with Sporting. They just need to pay what Sporting are asking for in the release clause. And I think in kind of true Spurs fashion, we kind of haven't done it that way. We haven't made it simple for ourselves. We've decided to bid something like 30 million, I think it was, like 15 million below the release clause. They've just rejected it. And because I know they probably could just wait till the summer and wait for maybe more parties to be interested. And I'm not sure if the release clause lasts until the summer, and maybe after that they could actually sell him for more than 45 million. You never know. So it's probably, I don't know, it's kind of similar situations where we're kind of price negotiating or price haggling when we really don't need to. They're asking for 45 million, and it could probably happen this January, though. I wouldn't get ahead of ourselves in saying it isn't happening, because we've been linked with him for a very, very long time. It feels like for almost 2 to 3 months now we've been linked to the guy. So I could definitely see it happening in January, especially if we get desperate, and we probably should be desperate right now. So I could see it happening in January, but that little part at the end from Fabrizio Romano was very annoying, let's say, to see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem is normally these deals are staggered over the length of the contract, and we were assuming the buyout clause means that you have to stump up the money in one go. So the negotiation would be, will you take 10 million now and 10 million then, etc. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Adrian, Dave, your thoughts on Adrian's comment? The deal for Porro will be done late in the window or in the summer.
Yeah, look, it's frustrating because you see the likes of Liverpool go out and do the deals, target the player, and get the deal done before January the 1st or sign it January the 1st. And with us, the usual modus operandi is the usual MO for us is just to haggle about the price. It's very simple. We've named the price. That's the clause. Pay it. The manager has said, "This is if it's to be believed to be true that Conte wants him." And I do hope that Conte wants him because it'll be a right waste of time if we get another right wing back who he doesn't want. And what will make our negotiation position more difficult is, let's say, the doc gets injured in training in the next week to 10 days, and then they'll really stick to that clause or even up the price. So, if you hire a trophy-winning, be-here-now manager like Conte, back him now. He's not a project manager. Pay the price.
Yeah. And James, you with us? Malinovsky. I've got this picture, although
Yes.
I think I might have got a FIFA picture looking at this. It looks a bit cartoonish. What's your thoughts on
It's
Malinovsky?
reality. Haven't watched a lot of him, to be honest with you. Sounds
No?
decent though. My MO is my view is this: if Conte wants the guy, he's probably good enough to get him, provided it isn't going to be an unreasonably expensive contract that saddles us with Deadwood in a year's time. But I can't say I've watched much of Malinovsky, know a bit more about Porro, but there you go.
He's left-footed. He could play as like a Kulusevski alternative. He's got, I would say, a wicked just left foot in the sense that he could probably take a lot of our free kicks, and he's got a lot of. He just hits it like an absolute rocket, really.
I will say for the area that I think most of us agree is pretty important, probably most important after right wing back to improve in, we're not linked with any centre backs, are we? Are we linked with any centre backs that anyone knows of?
Very frustrating.
As great as another attacking option would be, right? Hill's shown he's decent, right? And I think we all agree we need another centre back. A right wing back is most important, then centre back. Then if we can get some haggled deal for a good attacking option to replace Mora, right? Brilliant, okay? And, I've seen links to Kessie. All right, 15 million. He looks decent, right? I wouldn't necessarily say no to that, but I think it should be right wing back, centre back, then an attacking option. Because at some point, Kulusevski and Richarlison will come back from injury. Then we have, Son, Kane, Kulusevski, Hill, Richarlison. That's 5 options. So it feels low priority to me.
Yeah, but it's the Kane thing that worries me because he just plays non-stop football and it's ridiculous. So we need Richarlison back and rotate Kane a bit and rest him if we can, because that's the concern.
Yeah.
A guy like Malinovsky is not going to be played up top. So, it's I think if you really wanted a guy to be Kane cover, you almost want someone like Chris Wood. Like, he's not very good, but but genuinely, he's more of an out and out. He's more likely to play as a striker than someone like Malinovsky, right? Like, he's tall. He's kind of like a Llorente, a premium Llorente, right? Like, if you really want a short-term Kane cover, because at some point we are going to have to go out and go, right, who's going to be the next top-class striker, right? Which we should have been doing for a while, but we're going to have to find that guy, right? And maybe in the short term, you just get some bloke in who's good in the air, because we have very talented wingers, right? Kulusevski and Son and Richarlison, arguably. I mean, You know, guys like that are never going to be played up front. You know, Son can play up front, but you lose. He's not spectacular at holding the ball up. You lose that element of Kane's game. So maybe you do just want. I'm sure there's some Italian or Spanish 33-year-old striker who's good at holding the ball up, right? Like, I'm sure we could go find one for basically nothing. Like, I'd kind of rather we went and did that. Because, okay, cool, we've got a cup game against, you know, some non-league. So, cool, he can go up top, you know. Or it means you can play two tall, lanky blokes up front. I don't know. It seems like one of those things to me. It's where's Llorente? Can we get Llorente back for 6 months almost? If you get what I'm saying, because I don't think playing wingers up front is as successful in a Conte system, which is very reliant on holding the ball up with a big physical striker, which is why Conte quite tends to favour physical strikers like Morata or Lukaku for that matter, and Kane. So yeah.
Okay. Hill is covered for Kulu. Richie's covered for Kane. Son has no cover. Richie is not a left forward. I agree with that. Again, Perisic can play that role, but then you need to be able to have Udogie coming in at left wing back, don't you? Weghorst, cheapo reserve striker option. Yeah. I think the trouble is with Kane is that he's our playmaker. He was the one coming in making it all happen on Wednesday night. And without him, especially without Bentancur, we just don't have anyone that can really run the game unless he changes the system. Jack?
I just think we're struggling without. If we had someone like Richarlison, who granted doesn't play like Harry Kane, but he's a tall, physical striker who does very well holding up the ball and does a lot of the things that we were describing earlier, or as James was describing earlier. The issue is that Richarlison hasn't been consistently available at all for us, and it's just caused us to be in this frustrating situation where we're continuing to overplay Kane and having to, like, you maybe put wingers as strikers and go through that sort of headache. I think we just have to wait till Richarlison is fit, and then we can start to see the benefits of maybe playing someone who's slightly different to Kane, but also still offers a really valid threat. He presses the back line a lot more than Kane does. He makes the center backs have to sort of get rid of it quicker. He's going to kind of cause them, a bit of a trouble with kind of the physical play that he has, and also a bit of the housery that he kind of brings in as well, with all the times he goes down easily, but then in the next moment he'll step on their toes and kind of give them an elbow. He's just a bit of a I don't know, he's just a lot to deal with, Richarlison. So I think we can probably, once we have him back, see the benefits of why we went after him this summer, and that's to give Kane a rest and also to offer something different as well. And Richie also, if we wanted that extra goal, kitchen sink time, Richie is really good for that too. He can just play right next to Kane, and we can play basically two strikers next to each other. Kane can play a bit more creatively, and Richie still can sort of press back the back line and stretch them a bit and have to keep them honest. So I don't know. It's just been frustrating because all the things I was describing that Richie does, we haven't been able to see him do because he's just been injured this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian saying about Zaniolo will be gettable in the summer. Obviously, Roma put the price up to a stupid amount in the last summer to make it difficult for us to sign him. Can you see him coming in, Jack?
Likely not. I think we probably had our opportunity in the summer. He was probably, again, a bit of that Kulusevski alternative, also someone that could maybe form a 3-5-2 for us if need be. But I don't see it happening. I'd likely see more Marcus Edwards maybe coming as that right wing potentially, or someone else that maybe we haven't exactly seen many reports of yet. But it does look like we're looking at some sort of Kulusevski alternative or some extra winger of some kind, because Lucas Moura basically hasn't been fit for us at all this season either. So we've been playing with one less winger. So it kind of makes sense why we've been going after a winger, even despite Hill playing quite well recently. It makes sense why we're going after a winger.
I think it has to be someone to play on the left. If Hill's going to play on the right, which,
I think you probably try to go after players like Hill who can sort of play both, right? Players, ideally, that's what you want, is these guys who can play left wing and right wing. Obviously, they might prefer one or another, but they can do both pretty competently. That's what you want.
Yeah, Denzel Dumfries. There was Seb sent us a message the other day suggesting that Dumfries and Emerson were going to switch move, and I think all of us just said, "What, like the old poppycock?" Basically, I can't see Inter falling for that. Surely.
Wow. I don't think Barcelona stopped laughing since we paid them 25 smackers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And as I said, I keep saying it, what I don't understand is how Paratici does a deal for 25 million for Emerson and 12 months later just does a 1-year loan deal on Longley. It was a similar, same cash-strapped club. Very odd.
Well,
Yeah.
no, the
Very
difference is Longley's on a massive salary, and we needed a player for us. The idea was they reckon they can get a left-sided centre back this summer. They couldn't get who they wanted last summer, so he was a stopgap.
It's also pretty
think that's the
rich
idea.
it's pretty rich of Barcelona to be laughing at other clubs for financial decisions, and they should look at themselves in the mirror. They should maybe look at themselves in the mirror first. Especially, what did they pay for Griezmann? The guy who they're getting sued over, 100 odd million for him to never basically do good one.
Yeah.
He never had one good game. It felt like for Barcelona, and he went there for hundreds of millions. So.
Okay, I've got a couple of things just to say. The Portsmouth game tomorrow is live on the BBC iPlayer. So if you're not in this country and you can't see it for any reason, stick a VPN on, get the BBC on. You'll be able to watch it on the iPlayer because it's not live on normal TV over here. Although I know HG's told me he can watch it in Austria on whatever channel. Myself and James will be there, hopefully, as long as we get up there in time, and hopefully be nipping in. I think probably going to go to Coach and Horses. And then we're sitting in the North Stand, so come and say hello. Dave.
So if you're in the Coach and Horses, buy me a pint.
I love it. You just popped in for that.
Yes.
I'm a Polish pint.
He's made 3 appearances on this show in what? How long we got? An hour and 40. And the 3 times he's appeared, it's please buy me a pint. Okay. So he's a student. I think it's on Channel 10. Which is terrestrial, I think, in Australia tonight, 11:30. I'm going to see the Sydney Kings with the boys basketball tonight, and then once we get back from that, we're going to watch the game, which will be nice. And lovely to be back on. Happy birthday, James! And how old, James? 20.
On Monday.
20 on Monday. Your father does not look old enough to have a 20-year-old son, such as the Benjamin Button. The Dorian Gray.
Older than I look.
And lovely to see you, Jack. Enjoy this time of Gil love. Enjoy it.
Hopefully we see him in the next spelling bee, the multi-talented man.
Yes.
Great to see you, Jack. Thanks for coming on again.
Thanks for having me. Always good to be back. It's been a while. Thanks for letting me sort of take a break. I was out seeing family and whatnot, and good to be back on these regular Fridays. Appreciate it.
I think I've got Irish penciled in for next Friday for the North London Derby preview as well. So that should be good. And we do have our Irish Gooner, Stephen, the Reasonable Duke Gooner's back on next Friday. So that should be a good show.
I'll prepare him.
Okay, you prepare him. And James, thanks for having terrible internet at my parents' house.
Well, tell them to get better internet.
Wow, no chance.
No, I thought their internet.
I will see you at 7:45 in the morning. All right?
Yeah, all right. Okay. I've been told I'm going to be woken with an espresso at 7, so it's all good. I'll be fine.
Good. So you see, perfect hotel. That's all you need. Just terrible Wi-Fi. But on that note, please do hit the like button. If you're watching this after we've recorded, please put a comment in the comments. Say something in the comments, something nice, hopefully, or constructive. But on that note, I'm going to say, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.